The Aristocrats, a rock fusion instrumental supergroup trio consisting of Guthrie Govan, Bryan Beller and Marco Minnemann, are set to tour Australia for the first time in October, touring the East Coast as well as Adelaide and Perth. I have Marco on the line to talk about it now. Hi, Marco.
Hi there. How are you doing?
Very well. Now, this isn't the first time you've personally been to Australia, right?
No, I've been to Australia quite a few times, I think. First of all, I played a few drum fests a while back. Then I played with a band called Creator, like a heavy metal band. And then I also was there with Joe Satriani, and that was like 2 years ago. And I think, it was a couple of times, quite a few times in Australia, and it's great. I like it there. Maybe I should move there someday.
Actually, the one time I wanted to see you was when I saw Stephen Wilson come here for the first time, and you weren't there.
That is correct. Yeah, that is correct. I had to make a decision about like some touring commitments and things like that, and I was basically having the Joe Satriani tour and the Aristocrats tour, which were confirmed first, and so yeah, I couldn't do that, which is unfortunate because I like playing with the Stephen Wilson band, and yeah, but sometimes you have to make a decision for something, and it's like not really a musical decision. It's more like like who comes first, and what is confirmed first, and so it's like a little bit of a scheduling thing.
So stepping back a little bit, who were some of your personal musical influences, and did any of these help you to decide to make the drums your main instrument of choice? Because, of course, you're a multi-instrumentalist, but the drums is your main one.
Well, it's interesting because the drums are probably the main one, when people see me play live. But, I started playing actually organ, strangely enough, and that was like when I was 5, 6 years old. And then I switched to guitar and then to drums, even though I had drums always in mind and was kind of banging around on things and stuff like that. But for some reason, drums became, my virtuoso, or like my live instrument as well, that I kind of, brought to the stage, and that I, kind of, had the main focus on for a while. And so my influences basically were I always named bands, because I always love to listen to the music, and I write music. I love writing music and playing other instruments. So first of all, I have to mention the group Queen, which pretty much got me into music, basically News of the World. That was like, the first album that I heard when I was like 6 years old when it came out, and my parents bought it, and it was sitting at home, and it just blew me away, just, about the versatility, about like, how different it was from everything else. And I just loved it, like when We Were Rocky came on, you got to be kidding me. It was like, as a little kid, I was like, what the hell is going on now? And it went straight to We Are the Champions, and then to Sheer Heart Attack, and then, All Dead and Spread Your Wings, all different songs, but all like so good and versatile. So that kind of really was my first, big influence as a band, and still is. I really, really like that band. The second one I would name would be Led Zeppelin. That was the same kind of thing. You put the record on and you think like, what the hell? And so that was like Houses of the Holy. Yeah, that was the first album I heard of them. And then later on, when I discovered Frank Zappa in my teenage years, that was another thing where I thought, okay, this is really, really cool. A lot of musical complexity, but also musical beauty, and just like edgy lyrics, which was cool as well as being a teenager. You thought like, either way, you had like, jazz bands from like, let's say that like the GRP label, which was like very clean and, very fusiony, and, but I like heavy metal by that time as well. So I wanted to have like a little bit of the edginess, So to me, it was like, well, okay, these guys can play, but what else is there to it? What is cool about it? And so Zappa had all that, right? Frank Zappa was like the thing, he had daring lyrics, he had like, great musicianship, and so that was definitely another influence, which we all in the Aristocrats also mentioned.
I was actually listening to an interview with you last night, and you mentioned that there could be a day when you listen to Van Halen in 1 second, and the next second you could put on a Kraftwerk record.
That is absolutely correct. That is absolutely true. And, Fair Warning from Van Halen, is one album that I always like to mention. That's like, such a cool record. And
it's
Kraftwerk,
my favorite.
For example, Computer World, you can't. Oh, is that so? See, like Fair Warning, that's such a cool album. Mean Street, every song is actually great on that one. Like even like the weird ones, like Sunday Afternoon in the Park. What an odd album. Sinner Swing is on that one. Dirty Movies. Everything is awesome on that one. And well, Kraftwerk is. See, the thing is, like I think about versatility is. Well, I believe like with food is the same kind of thing. You can eat like you have many choices. if you eat like Indian food or sushi or something like that, but it has to be good. And it's the same, with music to me. I'm happy to listen to electronic music, to classical music, to metal, jazz, or a good pop record or whatever. It doesn't matter if it's done well. I appreciate Raikuda then the same way as I would appreciate a good Slayer album.
Just a bit of trivia for you. I opened the liner notes of Houses of the Holy and noticed it was released on the 28th of March, 1973. That's my birthday.
Hey, well, that's great. What a great coincidence, right?
Now, getting back to the Aristocrats, an Englishman, a German, and an American walk into a bar. It sounds like the start of a joke. Classic joke. How did the Aristocrats come together in the first place?
Yeah, it sort of was a joke, It's like, because the thing is, we started as a different kind of trio at first, because what happened there, first of all, Bryan and I, we used to play, or we still sometimes play together with Mike Keneally, and as a trio, and that's when we kind of, started to getting to know each other, and then I had one thing where I got invited over to Russia, to Vladivostok, for a festival. And they asked me if I could come with a trio or with like a band, of my choice. And I did this a few times. And one time I kind of, I actually went with Bryan Beller and with Greg Howe on guitar. And, we had a few shows there. And then we kind of, kept in touch and did like a few more gigs together. And then we had like the offer for the NAMM show. It was actually Bryan's bass bash. So he had like a bass gig, and he said like, hey, you guys want to kind of, play a few songs at the bass bash? And we said yes. And then Greg unfortunately had to cancel, I think, like a few weeks before the show. So because he had like a recording or some session, that was sort of important for him. And so we were a little bit in a dilemma, we said like, look, okay, it's the bass bash gig and it's early enough to either way cancel it or find another guitar player to do it. And we were literally like, that close, I'm kind of making a hand gesture now, but like that close to really canceling the show. It was like literally hanging on a thread going like, you know what, let's just not do it. And then, he said, well, there's this guitar player, like somebody on Facebook wrote and said, like, you guys should try out Guthrie. Check this guy out. And the funny thing, I said, like, hang on, Bryan, that was like the guy, while we were actually in Vladivostok, someone from the organization showed me a video of, like a YouTube thing. And he looked like a nice guy. He was like very versatile, and so we thought like, okay, you know what? Why don't we just, give it a shot? Let's just, contact him. It turned out that he, replied and knew our work and said like, hey, I know you guys. It would be fun to play. Plus, I'm at NAMM as well during that time, So that was kind of the anchor for it as well, that we were all in the same place. And so like, well, okay, let's each of us bring in two songs from our solo catalog and just perform them live. And so we did, and that's how that whole thing happened. And it was like a certain magic there in the air. I guess, the people really loved it, and we had like such a good turnout, and it was just, the response was great that we decided to keep that recipe going, that each of us brings complete songs to the band. And that's what we're doing today. Basically each of us writes 3 songs for an album, works as the producer for their own songs, and and that's how Aristocrats records happen. We kind of write them, learn them, go into the studio, perform them, and then we bring them, to the stage.
On the most recent album, there's a track called ZZ Top, which I've heard you describe as, that you named it ZZ Top because that's how it sounded to you. How do you go about naming instrumental tunes normally?
Well, okay, that was, it was really, I had this one riff, that I was playing on the guitar, and it did remind me of a little bit like a ZZ Top-ish sound or whatever I had, or like the riff itself. So, and I didn't have a title yet, for the song. So the working title was ZZ Top, and I found it kind of funny. I thought like, well, okay, let's just, keep the title of the track. And so that was that story, but usually, I really stay away. If like something reminds me of a band or something, I usually, kind of, make something else out of it, or kind of, just lose the idea. I really like, of course, to write songs, that really are unique. But the ZZ Top song now doesn't sound like ZZ Top anymore. I guess it was just the first riff that happened. But usually, when we name songs, here's another song, Pressure Relief, for example. That's like a really, kind of spacious song. I had the song called, on the second album, Desert Tornado, which was based on a real event, where I had like a tornado in Lake Elsinore, where I live, and all of a sudden, there was on the news, like, tornado warning, seek shelter now. So, and I was just about to write, this one piece, and I had like this sort of turbulent drum groove, and I kind of dedicated it to that event and kind of made it, sounding tornado-ish. And plus, it's like also a good story, to tell, because what we do live, we also announce the tracks. Each of us, announces the songs, that we wrote, and so each of us have the individual stories, like Bryan has a story about like what is called Texas Crazy Pants, and that really happened. He met like this crazy lady on a gas station who threatened him with the police, because he apparently ran into her car, which he thought it didn't happen. And Guthrie has like the story about the Kentucky meat shower, which he'll probably explain when he goes to Australia, which also was like a real event about like vultures eating dead horses and dropping the meat over the town of Rankin. So people thought it was raining meat, So, these are the stories, that make fun songs, and then also, good stories. And so, and it's also entertaining, I guess, to the audience a bit, rather than kind of just, taking ourselves like way too serious, and just kind of not communicating with the audience and just going like, look, what we're pulling off here. This is, not our mission. We want to have like a great time on stage and with the audience, and not, just with us.
You mentioned before that Led Zeppelin was one of your early influences, and they were renowned for really improvising on stage and going on for hours with improvising. Do you guys get the opportunity to improvise? So many bands these days don't actually do it. They stick very much to how it sounds on the recorded product. If you go to an Aristocrat show, are we liable to hear something that's quite different from the recorded product?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, the songs are, we definitely work as a band who, that composes, songs. So we basically have like really compositions, but we leave a certain amount of freedom there, that we can kind of change things up a little bit and come up, with unexpected things here and there. So we love that, we love the interactions. Like otherwise it's kind of just holding a monologue and kind of repeating the same stuff, like a poem. This is really not what we want to do. We have like, some set arrangements, but, some conversation will happen.
You work with some pretty big names like Steven Wilson and Joe Satriani most recently. How would you say working with those two different artists compare with each other?
They're very different artists, and both very cool. Like when we play, with Steven Wilson, for example, the recording process is actually similar, believe it or not. But we learn the songs, and then we bring them to the studio and we play them live. And that is also the same thing with the Aristocrats. So that's the funniest thing, that these three bands share the same recording technology, bringing basically what we know in the studio and play as a live band, and then maybe just do like a few overdubs. So some of the albums were recorded quicker than you might think. Like with Aristocrats, usually when we record 10 days, and then we do like few overdubs and then the mix down. With Steven Wilson, it's like, I think that album The Raven that Refused to Sing, that was recorded in a week, and same for Hand Cannot Erase, we were like there for 5 days or 7 days or something like that. And then, of course, like overdubs, things like that. Same as for the Joe Satriani production, which was really fun as well. And so these things are sort of similar from the whole approach. Obviously, like musically, it's quite different, For example, the live experience, that's where it really differs. And I'm very happy to explain about that one, because with Steven, we come with screens, like a show, and everything is like, very visual. Now with Joe Satriani, we come with an even bigger production. We have like, 2 nightliners, a full-on truck, with lights and everything. So, pretty much we're dependent on bigger stages with that kind of event. We can only play like, a certain size amount of, venues, with all this entourage we're traveling. So, and if you compare it to the Aristocrats, for example, we're only like 3 people and sometimes 2 crews. So we can set up, basically in on the bigger stage, and we sometimes played the same stages as with Stephen or with Joe. And sometimes we could play in your living room. It's all about the instrumentation. It's all about just the bare bones music with us.
So the Aristocrats is touring Australia between October the 2nd and the 10th. Marco Minnemann, thanks so much for chatting with me, and all the best with the tour.
Well, thank you kindly for calling, and I'll see you guys out there.